Hi, this is Eric Thomas in the Division of Engineering, Office of Production, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the ODOT Notes application. So to get started, let's open the application from our ODOT pull-down menu under Drafting Apps, and we're going to use the Plan Notes application. And this is one that recently has gotten some updates, so if you haven't used it for a while, the dialog may look a little different. And the dialog or the application has two functions. The primary function is to place standard plan notes using ODOT's .NOT files, and secondary function is to compose your own note and place that note and edit and format that note using this dialog box. Before I get started, I'm going to place a ODOT General Notes cell. So we've added a Place Cell button to this dialog, and I'll go ahead and click that. And it's actually placing two cells. It's just got the General Notes cell itself, and also the 4-column outline is placed with it. So I'll just go ahead and put that where I want in the file. And before I start placing any notes, I just want to point out that it is our intent that general notes are placed using a 1-to-1 scale relationship. So you can see here I have my model annotation scale set to a 1-to-1 relationship. Okay, so I'll zoom in a little bit on this first column, and to get started I'm going to browse for a note file using our browse icon here. And it's defaulting here to ODOT standard via iStandard notes, and there's all the different note files that are available, and those are maintained for us by Beth Heimberger in the Office of Production. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick maybe the bicycles note and open that file. And there's only one note available on that one, so maybe that wasn't a good choice, but I can just pick that note and go ahead and place it in the file and give it the data point location. And the note is added, and it looks like the length is just a little longer than our column length. So that's one thing to make note of, is the application does not attempt to wrap notes that may be very long. That's up to you to manually pick text and move it over into the next column. So let's pick another note file, maybe the drainage notes. And this file has several notes, as you can see, are available. And so I can pick which one I want to place. And one of the things I failed to mention on the first note I placed was the designer notes. If there are any designer notes associated with this, if I click View Designer Notes, it'll show me those notes in a separate dialog, so I can read any special instructions that might go with that note. So to place the note in the file, again, I'm just picking the note that I want, place notes, and then identifying the location. Now if I needed to edit that note for some reason or make any changes to it, I can click the Show Editor button, and that'll expand the dialog to show me the entire note. And I get some additional options here. So with the Note Editor displayed, first thing you'll notice is it shows you the note, and it's currently highlighted the entire note. And that's the way the application works. When it places the note, it really goes by whatever text you have highlighted. So if I only needed to place a portion of this, I can highlight that and click Place Note, and then that's the only part I get. If nothing is highlighted, when I hit Place Note, it's going to automatically select the entire note for me. Let's move that out of the way. Down here in the lower left, there is two options to use our standard 4-column outline for notes or user-defined column width. So you can change that to a different column width if you need to for some reason. I'm just going to stick with our standard 4-column. There's an option here for bolding the title. And the way that works is really it's the first line of the note is bolded if this is checked on. And you can see that is placed with a heavier weight. I think that's placed with a weight 2 value, and then the note itself is placed with a weight 1 value. And there's an option for block placement, and then there's this block justify and left justify. And there's probably a lot of confusion over the difference between these. The block justify and left justify options are intended to be used only when you're typing in a note from scratch. So if you're typing in a note that does not have carriage returns or line feeds, that's the intent here, is to go ahead and block justify it, and it will format to fit within the 4-column outline or the user-defined width, whichever you have selected. Or left justify. again, formatting within the values you have here. So if you're using one of our standard notes, these two options are not intended to be used. Beth has put the notes together with the carriage returns at the appropriate place, so it will approximately fit within our standard 4-column outline. So just to illustrate that, I'll pick another note and place it, and you can see that it fits approximately within that 4-column outline. And there's some hyphenated words as needed. So changing the justification here on the notes that Beth has pre-formatted, you may end up with hyphens in the middle of a paragraph instead of at the end. So again, you don't want to use these two options on our standard notes. You only want to use those when you're typing in notes from scratch. And I will come back and touch on that. Now, the block placement is different. What block placement is going to do is constrain or force the width of this note to meet your column width. So in this case, on the farm drains, this first line goes a little over. It's going to actually scale the Y direction of that to shrink it up so it will fit the exact width. The second line is a little shorter, so it will scale that to lengthen it, again, just scaling it in the Y direction. So that'll block these up. Now, there are some tolerances built into that. So maybe on this line with the outlets, it really doesn't need to be scaled. So the option button here for settings brings up a settings dialog that I'll just move over here to the center. And there's a maximum stretch value and a maximum shrink value. And so that's set by default to 1.06% or 0.94%. So it's going to, if it needs to stretch it, the most it'll stretch is 1.06%. If it needs to shrink it, it's going to shrink it 0.94. Any more than that or less than that, the text starts to get a little hard to read with, maybe some things that are stretched out too far. You certainly wouldn't want this last line here, larger than the existing conduit, stretched all the way across. So that's where these maximum settings come into play, is to help it determine which lines to shrink or to stretch. And you can change those tolerances if you want. I just wouldn't change them too much because, again, you'll start to get some weird scaling. Tab spaces. If I enter a tab in the editor when I'm working in the editor, it doesn't really view a tab the same way in Visual Basic. So what it's going to do is convert that to spaces, and the default is for a tab to be converted to 5 spaces. So I'll just close those settings and leave them on the defaults. So having that discussion, let's look at block placement and turn that on, and we'll just compare the farm drains note versus a block placed version. So I'll click block placement, put it over here, and you can see what I was talking about with it scaling that in order to fit within the tolerances there. For example, this second line in the second paragraph was not scaled. It was shorter than the tolerance value. There's a couple lines down here you can see the same thing. Okay, so let's talk about typing in a note from scratch. There's a couple ways to type in a note from scratch. I guess before I do that, I should mention here there's a right-click option in the note editor and some functions there for your standard copy, cut, paste, select all, clear the selection, or clear all. So I'm just going to clear all the text in there and type in something from scratch. So I'll type, this is a new note, entered manually. I'm a really bad typist. So this is going to take a long time for me to put in a note of any length. See, I guess I should have typed this in a notepad and just copied and pasted it in for the demo. I didn't think that far ahead. I'm also a poor speller. So no spell check is a disadvantage. Okay, so there's my note. And as you notice, there's no carriage returns or line feeds entered. And if I hit place note right now, it's just going to run that thing out for the full length. So that's where these two icons come into play, with a block justify or a left justify. And with a block justify here, it is not a scaling function like block placement is. And you really don't want to use both. So if I'm going to block justify here, I really want block placement turned off. What the block justify does is look at my line length and attempt to fit the proper number of characters within that line width or column width in order to end up with a block justification. Now, it's not going to be a true block justification because I'm using my active font and I'm not using a monospace font. So in other words, not every character occupies the same width. But if I use block justification, what it'll do is it'll pad some things with some spaces, and you'll see maybe some extra spaces put in here to attempt to make these roughly the same length. So right there you can see there's a couple of places where it's added an extra space between some of the text. Now you could use this block placement option with block justification to place the note, and you may or may not get results you like. It's up to you. That doesn't look too bad. You'll notice I did lowercase letters instead of all upper. I probably should have done all upper to match our ODOT notes, which are all uppercase. And you also notice I really don't have a header or a title like farm drains here. I just have my text or my note. So I have the bold title on it, and that's why that first line is placed with the weight 2. So the difference between the block justify and the left justify is the left justify is not going to enter these extra spaces in an attempt to get them approximately the same length. It's just going to make everything left justify and run out, and there wouldn't be any of these extra spaces put in. But it will also attempt to make them approximately the same length on the left side. I'm not going to demonstrate that because that would require me to retype this note, and I don't want to take the time to do that in this demo. So that's really everything as far as the operation of the application. There's probably some things there that were a little confusing from the documentation with the justification and the block placement. So hopefully I was able to clarify some of those items for you. If you have any problems with this application or any of our ODOT applications, be sure to contact us in the Office of Production. We'd like to fix problems, so we've got some good programs out there for you to use. So thanks and have a good day.